Whom and why? And also, in this vein, does the White House still plan to issue an executive order banning mail-in voting, and what legal authority do you have to do that?
The White House is working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system. It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
Fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law.
Well, there it is. That's the line Democrats didn't want back in circulation. From the White House podium, Caroline Leavitt says, "I'm happy to provide you with all the evidence." Not speculation, not vibes, not internet rumour. A White House press secretary on camera saying the administration has evidence and is prepared to provide it. And now that clip has come roaring back at the worst possible time for Gavin Newsom, because California is in chaos. Votes are still being counted. Late ballots are shifting races. The FBI and federal prosecutors are already looking at election fraud allegations in California. Steve Hilton is holding up the election code on television. Mike Johnson says the whole thing stinks to high heaven. And Gavin Newsom's own break the glass comment is now sitting right in the middle of the same news cycle. This is no longer just a California election story. It's now a national election integrity story. Now, let me be more precise. The Leavitt clip itself comes from a White House briefing transcript dated the 4th of November 2025, where she defended claims about California's universal mail-in voting system and said fraudulent ballots were being mailed in under other names and under names of illegal aliens. That quote is in a public transcript, which you can see at presidency.ucsb.edu. But the reason it matters now is because everything she warned about is suddenly back at the centre of American politics. California's vote count is really slow. The races have been shifting. Federal prosecutors say multiple election fraud investigations are underway, and millions of Americans are watching California and asking the same question. How can the biggest state in the country, the home of Silicon Valley, the state that lectures everyone else about democracy, still be counting days after the election? That's the through line here. For weeks, the right has been saying California's system is vulnerable. The left have been saying, what's the evidence? And now the White House podium clip is back in the conversation saying, we have it, we'll provide it. And California definitely have questions to answer.
Is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
Fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law.
Now, if you have a look at her remarks and break that down, let's have a look. In the name of other people, that means identity. That means a ballot attached to one person's name being used by someone else. In the name of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting. That means non-citizens appearing inside the system. Countless examples. That means the White House was not presenting this as one isolated mistake. Now, be careful here. Those claims have been strongly disputed by California officials and election experts, and multiple reports have said broad fraud claims around California elections remain unproven. Reuters reported today that Trump has intensified attacks on California's election system. while California officials defend the integrity of the process and say delays are tied to mail-in ballot verification and counting rules. But politically, it's still explosive, because at the same time officials are saying nothing to see here, and the federal government's watching. The DOJ is involved, the FBI is involved, and California's slow, confusing count is doing absolutely nothing to build anything of a public trust.
The president keeps saying that there's election fraud in the California mayor's race. What evidence is there to prove that?
You tell me, Manu. They are counting votes weeks after the election. We have entire nations with huge populations, like India, that can count their votes in 24 to 48 hours.
You're saying it's rigged like the president?
I'm not saying it's rigged. I'm saying it stinks to high heaven, and everybody knows that. Let's remove the appearance of impropriety. Let's have what a concept. Let's have votes on an election the day of the election. That's what many states are able to do. I think California is playing around with this.
But what evidence is there to prove that there was rigged?
Look, some of these efforts are so diabolical and so far upstream it is impossible to prove. But I think everybody knows instinctively something is wrong here. And that's a concern. We need people to believe in the integrity of our election system. It is critical to maintain a constitutional republic. We're going to keep working to pass the Save America Act, because it requires, as you know, proof of citizenship and a photo ID to vote. Those are also 90% plus issues in public opinion, and 70% of Democrats understand that's necessary.
Aren't you all just saying that because you've lost the election because the Republicans did not win in this race? This is why you're hearing that?
I'm saying that every leader of all parties should demand election integrity. And if somebody is opposing that, you should look at their motives. That's what I'm saying.
So that was the Speaker of the House, basically saying what millions of Americans are thinking. It stinks to high heaven. Now notice what Johnson did there. He didn't let Manu Raju force him into a simple yes or no trap. And he didn't say, I have personally proven every single ballot is fraudulent. He said the process itself looks rotten. The slow count, the long delays, the late ballots, the lack of public confidence. And that's the key, right? Because election integrity, it's not only about whether someone can prove fraud in court after the fact, it's also about whether ordinary voters can look at the system and believe it's clean, fast, transparent and fair. And California is failing this test badly. Even the Wall Street Journal reported that Trump and allies, including Mike Johnson, have focused on California's slow mail ballot process, while also noting that no evidence has been provided to support claims of widespread fraud. That's why Johnson's phrase lands, because whether the left like it or not, the appearance of impropriety matters, and California's system, at the moment on camera, looks terrible.
Here are the actual rules, okay? This is from the actual election law, and it's got a list of the things that are a voter's what makes a ballot valid. A voter's ballot shall be considered a valid ballot if this section 8, vote by mail ballot identification envelope has no dated postmark, the postmark is illegible, and there's no date stamp for receipt from a bona fide private mail delivery service, but the voter has dated the vote by mail ballot.
I mean,
does that mean? It means
what could go wrong?
Write it with your hand. In other words, in the California rules that they claim are secure, you can backdate your ballot. Here are the actual rules, okay?
Now that's the part that makes people's jaws hit the floor, really. Steve Hilton goes on Newsmax and he holds up California's actual election law and says, look at the rule. California law says vote by mail ballots can be timely if they are received within 7 days after election day and either postmarked on or before election day, or if there is no postmark, no dated postmark, or an illegible postmark, the envelope is date stamped by officials on receipt and signed and dated by the voter on or before election day. That wording appears in California Election Code, Section 3020 and Section 4103. Now, California would say that's a lawful safeguard for ballots where the postmark is missing or unreadable, but Hilton's point is obvious. To normal people watching at home, that sounds insane. No clear postmark, no readable data. But if the voter dated envelope says it was signed on time, the ballot can still be treated as timely. And the question ordinary people in America ask is, how is that secure? How is that transparent? How is that not open to abuse? Because if people already distrust this system, this kind of rule just doesn't do anything to calm that down, and it confirms their worst fears. And that's why Hilton's clip is so powerful. He's not just ranting, he's actually reading the law, and as you saw, he's got it there right on camera.
It's an absolute fiasco, a total shambles, and it's a illustration of everything that's gone wrong in this state with these Democrats. They can't run anything properly. They can't build a railway. They can't clear the homelessness. They can't run an election. It's riddled with total uselessness and incompetence. It's an
You know, that's the broader indictment right there. California can't build the high-speed rail properly. It can't clean up homelessness. It can't make housing affordable. It can't keep businesses from leaving. And now California can't count votes in a way that half the country is going to trust. That's why it's so damaging to Newsom, because it's just not one isolated technical complaint. It's a whole pattern. The same one-party machine that runs the housing crisis is running the election system. The same political class that gives California the homelessness crisis is now telling voters to trust the ballot count. The same people who can't deliver basic competence are asking America to believe they're running the cleanest, fairest, most transparent system in the country. People aren't buying it. The AP reported that the US Attorney's Office in Los Angeles has launched multiple investigations into alleged election fraud. And it's all tied to California's primary elections. They sent a prosecutor to observe the ballot processing in Los Angeles. And it also reported that no wrongdoing was cited from that observation, and that Hilton himself said his campaign had not seen evidence of illegal activity. So again, precision matters. Investigation does not mean conviction. Allegation, it doesn't mean proof. But politically still, it's devastating because, the questions that are being asked are all now official.
We all have agencies. We can shape the future. There's still a lot. Look, I've said this before, so I'll repeat it. I don't anticipate this need to be the case, but there is a break the glass scenario, and there's many people that have a deep understanding of what it would look like if Democrats were locked out, and we're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll leave it at that.
And now, if you bring Gavin Newsom back into the frame, because his break the glass comment looks very different today than it did when he first said it. He was talking about what happens if Democrats get locked out. He talked about making sure it doesn't happen. And he talked about, people who understand what that scenario would look like. Now, Newsom's defenders will say he was talking about political strategy, party coordination, and avoiding vote splitting. Okay, fine. Let them make that argument. But in the middle of this California election chaos, with late ballots, shifting races, with federal investigations underway, with the White House podium clip back in circulation, and with Steve Hilton reading election code on television, that phrase now sounds terrible. Break the glass scenario? That's not the language voters want to hear from a governor when election trust is already really low. They want to hear, we'll respect the voters, we'll count quickly, we'll be transparent, and we'll answer every question. Instead, they hear the sitting governor of California talking about a backup plan if Democrats get locked out. And that's why this clip keeps resurfacing, because it fits this moment ever so perfectly.
Speaking of the leadership there, you mentioned Gavin Newsom and what he's done in terms of the election. I want to play this soundbite of what he said about a break the glass plan so that you always have a Democrat in charge. Watch this. Get your reaction.
My focus has been making sure that doesn't happen, and I've exercised not just a focus, but I've exercised through some action efforts to to encourage that doesn't happen by making my case. But there is a break the glass scenario, and there's many people that have a deep understanding of what it would look like if Democrats were locked out, and we're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen.
What's he referring to as this break the glass strategy?
I don't know, and it's very concerning to me as a governor to say that. Wouldn't you want the people of your state to select who should be? And you know what? If you got cut out, the people have the voice. The power rests with the people. This is why it's so concerning to me of how much damage he has done to our state by just simply taking the power away from the people. It was in our Constitution on how we would draw the lines. Yeah. He just did that to California, which is the 4th largest economy in the world, and now he's pre-picking who can represent you instead of the people. That's why he is so dangerous, and you saw the failures in California, and you wonder, we never had that prior to Gavin, and you don't want to make sure Gavin ever does that to our country.
What is your assessment of the California race? Why don't we know? I mean, this is such a long process, continuing to read ballots days after Election Day. What are you expecting here?
Well, the thing I'm expecting is I think the AP can actually call it from your former guest, Hilton, that he's going to come in number 2. Steyer would need to win and gain on him about 121,000 votes per million, and he's only been doing about half of that. So I think it's pretty sure that Hilton is going to be the number 2. I'm not as confident when it comes to the LA mayor's race. When I looked at the latest drop, we found that the councilwoman, Raman, that she was even beating Bass, and she's really coming on. Now, the question to the rest of the world is, what happened to California elections? Well, I'll tell you, it's Gavin Newsom. When Gavin Newsom was elected governor, California, you knew who was elected in a day to 2 days. Now it takes more than weeks, almost a month. Why did we get here? Gavin changed a number of election laws. And what you want to see is what did he do and why did he cause it? What people want to see in election, they want to see election integrity, they want to see transparency, and they want to see timely reporting. We had that in California. We were very liberal in the rules about absentee ballots, but we had accountability. We had cut off voter registration 30 days before the election. That helps the registrars to know who's going to vote and the candidates. Now we have same-day voter, and you don't have to show ID. Gavin changed the rules where he mails ballots to everyone. So he took away the choice to Californians to vote in person or to vote absentee. Everybody gets mailed a ballot. But he didn't clean up the rolls. So that raises doubt in people's minds. He takes away transparency, where when you look at the LA mayor's race, the 3rd place person gave it like a concession speech that night and cried. And she was getting the most votes in the last drop. So if she didn't even believe that she could move up, that puts in question to the whole election itself. And that's why it brings doubt to people. Look, Florida and Texas, nobody questions their election integrity. And they can tell you within hours. California could do better, and it just shows what Gavin has done to this state. We just lost the place where Fortune 500, the number 1 place was California, the most headquarters. Texas just took that from us. And now they've also taken our transparency and our ability to count elections as well.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, look, we've also got what Steve Hilton just mentioned, the Olympics in 2 years. That's a serious issue there. And
I sit on that board. I'm very excited about it. I'm helping as much as we can.
Will they be ready, though, Kevin?
Yes, because that is not run by the government. The team that we have put together, we got a former U.S. military general helping run it. This is unbelievable what they were doing. This LA Olympic team that is being planned actually went to Italy to help. They put them in to make sure they could get some of the things going. I'm very confident we're going to be able to do the job. And remember, when we had the last time we had the Olympics in LA, unbelievable what we showed the world, what Uberoff was able to do in managing that, and I believe our team right now is managing very well. We have met a number of times with the president to walk through. We want to make sure from the security level as well. We will be prepared, but believe me, this is not being run by the government of California.
Kevin McCarthy made a very simple point there, and it's Newsom changed the rules. California moved to universal mail-out ballots. Every active registered voter gets mailed a ballot. And now the state is taking days and days to count, while late ballots keep shifting the story. California's own Secretary of State says county officials vote by mail ballots to all active registered voters. And mail ballots must be postmarked or on or before election day and received no later than 7 days after election day. That's the system. And Republicans are now saying that system's too slow. It's too loose, too opaque, too vulnerable, and too convenient for the party that benefits from late arriving mail ballots. That's why this is now bigger than any one mayoral race. It's bigger than Spencer Pratt. It's bigger than Steve Hilton. And it's bigger than one ballot drop. This is about whether the most populous state in America can run elections in a way that voters actually trust. And right now, California is failing that trust test.
Just met with a great team of criminal investigators here at the IRS. If you asked Fire Aid for any money, you emailed them, please send me all your correspondence. If you bought tickets, merchandise, or donated to Fire Aid and you have the receipt, please email that evidence to info@prattdaddy.com. I repeat, if you are a fire victim in Altadena, Pacific Palisades, Pasadena, Malibu, any fire victims, and you reached out to Fire Aid, please send me those correspondence and then the correspondence of whoever Fire Aid told you to email. Thank you so much. Look forward to closing this case.
Now that's another clip that's going viral involving serious allegations about Fire Aid money, Pacific Palisades victims, NGOs, and Gavin Newsom. I'm going to be very careful here because this allegation is explosive. The person in the clip claims the IRS has confirmed serious wrongdoing and that hundreds of millions in fire relief money never reach victims. But I've not seen public confirmation from the IRS proving those claims. So here's the honest position. The clip's worth watching. The allegations are serious if they're true. They're actually enormous. But until there's public documentation, an official statement or a filed case, treat that as an allegation and not established fact. And that's important because we don't need to overclaim. There's already enough on the record. The White House podium clip's real. The California election code is real. The slow count is real. The DOJ and FBI investigations are real. The Newsom break the glass clip is real. That's more than enough. So this is where we are. California is still trying to explain why its elections take so long. The White House has a podium clip saying evidence exists. The Speaker of the House says the system stinks to high heaven. Steve Hilton is reading California election law on television and asking how any sane person could trust it. Kevin McCarthy is pointing the finger directly at Gavin Newsom's election changes. Federal prosecutors say multiple election fraud investigations are underway. And Newsom's own words, break the glass scenario, are now hanging over the whole thing. That's why this matters, because for years Democrats said election integrity concerns were conspiracy theories. Now the federal government is involved. For years Democrats said California was the model. Now California appears to be the warning. And for years, Gavin Newsom presented himself as the polished future of the Democrat Party. Now he's stuck defending a state that can't count quickly, can't explain itself clearly, and can't stop the country from asking very serious questions. That doesn't mean every allegation is proven. It doesn't mean every claim is fact. But it does mean the pressure's shifted and the burden is now on California. Open the books, show the process, explain the law, answer the questions, release the evidence, because when voters lose trust in elections, the answer's not censorship, it's not mockery, it's not telling people to shut up. The answer is transparency, and right now, California needs a lot more of it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is California's election system broken? Should every ballot be received by election day? Of course it should. And is Gavin Newsom now facing the biggest political crisis of his career? As always, thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share my video on your social media channels, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon. Bye for now.